All right, now I'd ask presenter Joanne McDonald to induct athlete Stan Eksal.
Good evening, everybody. Nobody ever complains about not hearing me. Anyway, before I start, I just want to say one thing to, of course, I'm going to do a rebuttal to Lowell because he gets away with nothing. I was one of the girls, St. Agnes girls, that were lucky enough to be coached by Jim Fox-Chasson, and I just have to say that he was the most wonderful coach on the planet, and we learned a lot from him, and he did his coaching in practice, and when we were at the games, he expected us to know what we had learned, and he was very quiet on the bench, something that Lowell would not know about. That's just from a St. Agnes girl's perspective. Anyway, I'm here tonight to honor Stan Eksal. And one of the things I love about these ceremonies, and I've been on the committee for 5 years now, I'm one of the token women that are on the committee, and Stan, what's important to me is to hear the athletes' stories. Like, they're all good. These guys and women, when we get one in, they played with a ferocity that is seldom seen today. Like, these people played, they were in it to win it. And it was such a pleasure growing up to be able to go to some of these games and watch these people play. So tonight I'm going to tell you Stan's story, what I can tell of it. Stan Eksal Sr. was born on December 17th, 1935 in New Waterford. He didn't have the greatest luck on his side starting out in life, as his mother died 2 weeks after giving birth to him of a blood clot, which was quite common in that time because women were kept in bed for 10 days after they had a baby. And his father died 6 months later of pneumonia. He was brought up by his maternal grandparents, Felix and Henrietta Burke of Lingan, who, although they were raising 13 children of their own, they provided a home for their baby grandson as well. Young Stan grew quickly, and his lanky frame, soaring well above 6 feet, was often seen pedaling his bike from one sporting event or another in Lingan. He attended school there and loved to play any and all sports that he could after school. He excelled at all of them. He didn't have the advantage of the town boys to play organized school sports in Lingan, so we can only imagine how he might have dominated those sports as well, if given the chance. Early on, Stan became involved in the sport of bowling. He first bowled with the Green Ball Hawks, a team from Lingan that won the Cape Breton Championship. He played in Sydney and Glace Bay, and he's only young, so he's biking over there at first, until the first bowling alley opened in New Waterford at the French Club. Stan also played in a town dart league. He was very young when he first started, around 16 years old, and as most matches were held in the taverns in town, he was always made aware that he was too young to be served liquor. He always loved playing darts, and his competitive nature made him a natural fit for this game of finesse. By all accounts, Stan was a very competent and keenly competitive dart shooter throughout the years. Stan also played hockey throughout his lifespan, playing in the more competitive leagues earlier on, starting in local leagues in the area. He played for the New Victoria Eagles, then played for a suburban league in Point Edward, before moving on to the gentlemen's hockey in New Waterford in later years. Although his frame was always tall and thin, none of his opponents would ever underestimate his strength, especially after getting knocked into the boards by Big Stan. Stan started working in the coal mines in 1952 at 16 years of age. He worked almost 20 years in the pit, and while there he started establishing himself in commercial fishing. He quit the coal mines for good when he was able to support himself with fishing. He was an avid outdoorsman. He loved to fish and hunt in his spare time. I don't know where he found it, but I can only imagine how suffocating it must have been for someone who loved the outdoors that much to be confined in an underground job. In 1958, Stan married Elaine Corbett, and they had 2 children, Helen and Stan Jr. Together they made their home in Lingan in a lovely house overlooking the ocean, where Stan still resides today. At 81 years of age, Stan can still be seen at Lingan Wharf or off the shores of New Waterford every morning, plying his fishing boat through the harbor and checking his lobster traps. To try and catch him for an interview can be tricky, as he goes to bed early most evenings and rises around 3 a.m. to start his fishing day. I must therefore gratefully acknowledge the assistance I received from my friend and Stan's sister-in-law, Alana McDonald, in helping with this interview. Although Stan professes to love every sport he ever played, it is undeniable that baseball was his niche. He started playing at an early age in various leagues around town, and the many sports he played often caused him to have a crazy schedule. Throw work and family into that mix, and you have one very busy man. He started playing junior ball around 16 years of age. I think 16 is when he woke up, because everything happened then. And in 1956-57, he played for the New Waterford Cubs in the Cape Breton Junior Baseball League, a team that won the Nova Scotia finals that year, due in no small part to Stan Eksal. It was here that Stan honed his skills as a pitcher, as well as playing right field and first base. But it was his powerful batting skills that earned young Stan the respect and admiration from teammates, rivals, and fans. This was evident in reviewing many scrapbooks from this area, where many of the headlines of the day read like this. And I made a little Stan wall over there if anybody wants to read those headlines. They went like, Stan Eksal beats Sydney. Eksal winner on 6th hitter. Stan Eksal leads way in victory. Eksal hurls 7-hitter. Eksal's booming bat leads Giants to title. New Waterford whips Sydney Mine Ramblers 12-2 behind Stan Eksal. Well, you get the gist. In 1958, Stan stepped up to senior baseball, and that year they lost out to Sydney Mines Ramblers in a fiercely contested series. It was supposed to be the best of 7 series, but it actually went to 9 games, due in no small part to the stellar pitching, fielding, and batting of big Stan Eksal. If you think that loss dampened the New Waterford team's spirits, quite the contrary. They came back the next year with renewed determination. They were hungry for a title in 1959, and they were a team that was not to be denied. Stan batted a most respectable .306 in 1958 and was the top hitter of triples that year and had a total of 28 RBIs. His prowess in the batter's box was legendary, but it was well known throughout the league that Stan was not a good runner. He sheepishly said, I always had to hit the ball really hard and really far in order to just get on base. It might be argued that those teammates who followed him in the batting order had to do the same in order to bring him back home. The brutal New Waterford fans were often heard telling him, get the stove off your back, Stan. Leave it to the New Waterford fans to give the gears to one of the best players. The 1959 edition of the New Waterford Giants, and I'm just going to say, I think Lowell is going to tell you a story concerning Stan's running as well, a little later on. The 1959 edition of the New Waterford Giants was undoubtedly a team hungry for a title, and their unfailing march to the Maritime title that year was made all the sweeter by the fact that they won it in New Waterford before thousands of adoring fans using only local players. Unquestionably, that was the team of destiny, with each player contributing hugely to the final outcome, and none more so than Stan Eksal. The air was magical throughout each tournament, and when the dust settled, the Giants had completed 21 playoff games, winning 17, tying 3, and losing only 1 on their relentless march to the Maritime Senior Baseball title. Here's what the Cape Breton Post had to say about Stan after their first win against the Sydney Mines Ramblers on September 2nd, 1959. If the Sydney Mines Ramblers see Big Stan Eksal in the next few days, it'll be too soon. Last night at the Sydney Mines field, the big New Waterford Giants hurler put on a one-man show. For 8 innings, he held the Ramblers' bats to 6 hits. At the plate, he drove in 5 of the 6 New Waterford runs for the 6-1 victory. One of his 3 blasts was an over-the-fence homer with 2 men on, and that hit clinched the game. In that series alone, Stan actually won 3 games on the mound, belted in 2 homers, knocked in 20 RBIs, and led all hitters with a .510 average. As they won the Nova Scotia title that year, yet another Post article stated, bolstered by the strong pitching and batting arm of Big Stan Eksal, the Giants rapped out a total of 17 base hits off 3 Canning pitchers, while Eksal and Spike McKinnon limited Canning to 8 hits. Eksal, the hero of the game for the Giants, came through with 3 big hits, which drove in 5 runs, and he came in to relieve McKinnon in the 5th, holding Canning to 2 runs on 4 hits to post up the victory and keep his record intact for the season, not having lost a game that year. Throughout the Nova Scotia and Maritime Championships that year, the Cape Breton Post was swamped with articles of Big Stan Eksal pitching and batting New Waterford Giants to victory after victory. This so-called Cinderella team of 1959 was made up entirely of New Waterford players, and Stan Eksal was certainly a linchpin in the win that year. You might think that the year would be the crown jewel in any player's career, but Stan continued playing for sheer love of the game and went on to lead the way for a second Maritime Championship for New Waterford in 1965, one of only 3 local players who could claim both titles. Stan has already been inducted into our Hall of Fame twice before as a member of those 2 legendary ball teams. All told, he played competitive baseball for more than 15 years. When asked what his favorite sport was, Stan replied, "Honestly, I don't know what to pick. I loved playing every one of them." Quite simply, he played for the love of the game, and that is why he was so successful at everything he did. As they say today, I said before, he was in it to win it. I am certainly in awe of this incredible athlete, and it gives me great pride to induct Stan Eksal tonight in the New Waterford Sports Heritage Hall of Fame. So I'll ask Stan to come up with whatever family members want to come up with him.
I got it.